So we're doing the breakfast cake. Right now we have a lot going on. I'm prepping for clients and I'm prepping my food for the next couple days. So I have the rice cooker going with the vegetables, containers for me, that's stuff for clients, and then these off to the side are gonna be part of the thing for the cakes. So we're gonna do like 2 cakes worth of batter in the Vitamix at a time. I just did a round to make sure that it works, because I typically use the Ninja cup, but this is probably better for what I'm doing right now. So it's 6 eggs per cake, and 125 grams of these oats specifically per cake, so 250 for 2 cakes. And then we're gonna do 150 grams of frozen organic blueberries from Costco, because they turn out really good, in each one, so that's 300 total. And then I'm gonna show you all this, I'm just kind of being preemptive. And then after this, I'm gonna add another 150 grams of berries on top before we bake them. That way it comes out like a berry cake. So that's what we're doing. So if I can crack the eggs without getting them everywhere. Now I know that the weight of the blender specifically is 900 grams. So what I'm gonna do is, after I'm getting the last bits of the white out, by the way. So when I prepare the contents of the batter and blend it up and everything, at the end, I'm going to weigh the container with the batter in it, subtract 900 grams, and then divide that by 2, and that's how I know how much to put in each Pyrex container there to accommodate, if that makes sense. So for example, the last combination of a dozen eggs, 250 grams of oats, 300 grams of blueberries, blended up, yielded that, which was 22,055 grams. So if you subtract 900, you're left with like 1155, which, divided by 2 is like 578 or whatever. So I knew that 578 grams was to go in each respective Pyrex container, if that kind of makes sense. Bear with me, I'm trying not to get egg everywhere. Tip I've noticed, by the way, so Alden Brown, one of my favorite chefs, said to crack eggs on a flat surface so as not to send shells into the yolk and to preserve the integrity of the yolk. That doesn't really matter right now because we're going to blend it anyway, but habits, I guess. But to save the counter and the mess or whatever, I put a towel down to try and absorb any residual egg whites. So thus far it's a success. And then also when I'm like sweeping up bits of batter with like the side of my finger or whatever so that it doesn't spill everywhere, etc. If I have stuff on my hands, the towel's right there. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so our eggs are cracked. Gonna wash my hands. Pardon the mess. We're in the middle of a lot right now. So we got the eggs, now the oats. Now I'm trying to layer this where, you know what? Never mind, I was thinking like, should I add the berries first or the oats? But if you have one of these things to push stuff down and mix it all up, it doesn't really matter. So, but yeah, so I zeroed it out. I'm gonna add, here, get an angle of this. So we're doing 250 grams up. Okay, perfect. Now these oats are worth mentioning, by the way, because I've typically gone through my fair share of Quaker oats, but the 1 Degree brand makes these sprouted oats that are organic and blah blah. They do taste better, but they're also better for you, and they're the same price, so it's like, why not, you know? Okay, so zeroed out again. I'm gonna do 300. Now typically I do the Wyman's, but I don't know if I just left these too long or whatever. There's a lot of like ice in there. I don't want that, at least for mixing into the batter. Even though I'm probably gonna add some on top. I don't know. But like these are a little bit bigger, a little bit less ice, and when they blend up, they get really purple, which I kind of like. I don't know if that matters, but Okay, so we zeroed out 300 grams, yeah, 150 each. I mentioned to you earlier, this message goes to Nick directly, earlier today, that I was doing this with bananas, but the Instacart order did not have bananas, so we're just adding extra berries, which I actually prefer anyway, so it's whatever. Okay. Well, the last batch had $2.99, so we'll call it 300, you know? Okay. Now, this bit here, your angles are excellent. So this bit here gets weird because when I blend it, a little bit of egg there, it's gonna like blend here, this stuff will sit on top, I'll have to like stamp it, so I'm preemptively going to pull out the top, get the stamp thing ready to go, and I kind of want to push the heavy stuff to the bottom, because as long as there's some liquid going on, it should carry it, if that kind of makes sense. So we're going to kind of like gently ramp it up. Now if there's an air pocket, you kind of want to stir it in the direction of the vortex to kind of get it going. Perfect. Hold on. Bear with me. This is what happens when a lot of stuff's going on, but this is kind of the behind the scenes of how we do potatoes. Probe thermometer helps a lot, that way you can do other stuff. Okay. So side note on the potatoes, kind of a secret. I bake them to an internal temp of 205. Vegetables tend to burn at like 210, so this is like the most you can get away with. And then I'll come up into like about these size pieces, like with the potatoes, flip them over, re-season them with a little oil, salt, and pepper, and then broil them for 10 minutes. Don't tell anybody that. Logan? Okay, so this is still going. Yeah, I'm watching as it goes up. I want it to go up all the way. Now I'm looking at the middle. So, that's quite the process, huh? Okay, so if I Take the lid off, make sure there's no like excess drippage. And then if I zero it, put it on, should be like around 2055, it's 2068. So we went over a little bit, and well, maybe one of the eggs was bigger or whatever. Everything else is right. Rice is done. Okay, so, oh, I would do the math, hold on. Calculator's on the phone. What is it? I guess it's only like 10 more grams per 580-ish. Okay, so if we do 580-ish per, so zero that out. Thanks for being patient, Logan. Okay, 580-ish. Almost there. Okay, call that good. This is why we have a counter towel, see? Okay. It's a little over, but that's fine. It's all gonna get eaten anyway. Zero out, and again, we're looking for 580-ish. Now, based off of my last round of pouring out batter, I'm gonna expect this to be quite shy of it, which it is. So that's why we have the spatula to get everything we can. Fun spatula anecdote. I mentioned this to Logan. When I was working at Nordstrom, there was a sous chef that I worked with who gave me a whole lecture on spatulas and using them for purposes like this, saving product. And he mentioned that there was a book called The $1 Million Tool. There was a guy that shadowed at a restaurant, and he followed everybody around with their containers like blenders and bowls and stuff, and got all the last bits of product out of every container he could, weighed it, and then calculated the price. And by the end of the year, the total came up to over $1 million, hence the title, The $1 Million Tool. Kind of a fun thing. So this is saving a lot. As you can see, I'm scooping out quite a lot here. It's over like 50 grams so far, just in what was residue, what would have been lost. So we're gonna get the last bits here. Now I just have to add some frozen fruit on top, and then we're good to bake. Now when baking, it's worth mentioning that the probe thermometers come in handy again. So we're going to put the probe in each of them. And I've noticed, I've tried like different temps before, and the best one I found, because we are talking about eggs, that's the majority of what's going on here, 160 degrees tends to be pretty much perfect texturally at the end, which is what we want. Because I've done the whole 200 degree thing before, and all that ends up happening is it burns. But yeah, so 160 degrees with a probe is where you want to be. You don't have to probe it. If you have like an instant reader, like a meat thermometer, you can just test it every now and then. But just know that like internal temp in the middle, we really want to live around 160. Okay, so this is pretty much it, but like, just imagine that like I put another, thanks for being patient, Logan. Just imagine that I put another 150 grams of frozen fruit in the middle, or sprinkled it over the top, and then probed it in the oven at like 400-ish, and then internal temp 160, and that's it. Okay, cool. Thank you again. So I'm pleasantly surprised. Apparently the ice or whatever just made it more colorful, and I really like how this looks. So we have the probe thermometer set for 160. You can see it's still in there, so it's like 165-ish. It's gonna keep cooking for a second. But just I borrowed your thermometer. Hopefully that's okay. But you can see all the way to the bottom, 170, not a bad thing. Sub 170. Sub 170. So they look pretty good. They smell like a blueberry pie, so that's great. And again, just like what we saw earlier, eggs, oats, the organic blueberries to blend, and then what I didn't show was putting 150 grams of the Wyman's on top, and then baking it with the probe thermometer. But didn't need to show you as it was cooking, whatever. But here we are. Probe went off. They look amazing. They smell fantastic. And this is breakfast for 4 days. So the macros, I believe, are like 1,000-ish calories for each one of these. And it's like 60 protein, I think 100 carb, and like 40 fat. Again, just for oats, blueberries, and eggs. So pretty good. Pretty excited about it.